Welcome back to Second Breakfast and our ongoing television discussions, bringing you the best thoughts, theories, and literary analysis this side of the Upside Down.
In this episode, we're talking about Volume 1 of Stranger Things 5 and 10 striking similarities between these episodes and Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. Let's get into it.
All right, so let's get right into it here. I have a thesis about Stranger Things after watching Season 5, or Stranger Things 5, Volume 1.
The agony we went through trying to figure out how to say this. Stranger Things Volume 5.
It's brutal.
Season 5, but Volume 1, Episodes 1. Anyway.
So my thesis
Let's do it.
is that Stranger Things is the American Harry Potter. Mm-hmm. And I think once you add in everything that would suit the American sensibility, guns, government conspiracy and corruption, a lot more cursing, I think this comparison starts to make sense. But the big one that crystallized in my head is where these stories draw their cultural roots and references from. Because so much of Harry Potter, all of the names, Remus Lupin, and you can go into constellations and ancient myth and legend, and all these references you, Maggie, are more familiar with than me. But I love that Stranger Things has that same reverence and encyclopedic knowledge of popcorn 80s movies.
Okay, yeah.
And I think that is the American translation for where we draw our cultural myths from.
That makes sense.
It's movies instead of old stories and fables and illuminated manuscripts.
Right, because our country is not all that old.
Sure, it's just different priorities.
Well, I mean, the second you told me this, when you said, hey, I want to do another episode, and I'm comparing it to Harry Potter, like it's the American Harry Potter, I thought that made total sense because, like, based on our last conversation we had about Stranger Things, talking about all these different genres and subgenres that this show dips into, and I was kind of wondering how it had such mass appeal if it was so, like, immersed in genre. And Harry Potter really is the same thing. It was fantasy, but on a wide scale that, like, where it was reaching people who aren't necessarily fantasy fans. So I think that makes a lot of sense. Listener, if you haven't listened to that episode, do go check it out. It was really fun. Cam had some really interesting things to say about all the different directions that the show goes in terms of genre.
Yeah, it's the genre evolutions through fantasy, sci-fi, and horror that it cycles through over and over again. And if we start looking at this from a structural level, this is Stranger Things 5, Volume 1. So it's going to be 8 total episodes in this final season. And these 4, Volume 1, make up the first half of the big finale for this story. And that struck me immediately as being remarkably similar to Deathly Hallows Part 1.
Of course.
Which is the first half of that big finale. And if we start going into these comparisons, I've got 10 to run through, but these are kind of bonus ones that don't count. Both stories end with a major victory for the villain.
Oh,
so
okay.
You have Voldemort with the Elder Wand at the end of Deathly Hallows Part 1, and Dobby dies, and,
yeah, right.
I guess spoilers
for Harry Potter. Where have you been?
And if we haven't mentioned it, spoilers for the episodes we're talking about, so everything in Stranger Things.
Yeah, sorry, you guys got to know that up front.
And the Dobby death, I think, is such a good bookend for Part 1 of Deathly Hallows, because it is that final death of innocence.
Yeah.
It really sets you up for this grim endgame.
And it's sort of bookended by Hedwig's death at the beginning of that movie.
Yes, and we will get back to Hedwig.
Oh, cool, okay.
But I do think we have a Dobby moment here. It's not just a major victory for Vecna instead of Voldemort in this case. Instead of Dobby dying, it's this successful abduction of all of these kids that we have, where it's kind of a Pyrrhic victory where all of our main players are still alive, but all of these kids are taken and gone. But now to rattle through the rest of these 10 Deathly Hallows echoes. I just want to popcorn these off and play with these.
Okay.
The first one, and I'm glad you already hit it, is that tone-setting sacrifice. In Deathly Hallows, you have Hedwig exploding, the beloved owl. I wish we saw like a couple feathers just kind of float
oh my God.
just to illustrate the point.
Well, and it's interesting because in the book, she's not exploded. She just like is killed and like falls down in her cage, but it's like really sad.
Right.
Like it's like almost pathetic, and it's like, it's actually really devastating.
That's mean.
No, but I'm saying like it makes it feel really, really sad. But yeah, I mean, I think having feathers would be a little
pathetic.
Oh my God.
Like Mad
You
Max
heard it
Fury
here first. That pathetic owl. Dumb owl. Anyway, sorry. So Hedwig, yep. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and there's a great parallel to that here with the Wheeler family.
Okay.
In fact, a Demogorgon breaks through and kind of rips through the Wheeler family, but being an American version of Harry Potter, we kind of chicken out. Like, people get obviously killed, and then they're in the hospital, and they're going to be okay.
Oh, okay.
But when you see the scene, it feels like that kind of throat-clearing, oh shit, this is the finale, we're not taking any prisoners.
I see, okay.
And during that scene, you have a mother, Karen Wheeler, trying to defend her daughter, Holly. And she almost says the "not my daughter, you bitch," Mrs.
Cool.
Weasley line.
Cool.
And it feels like enough of a nod that it's intentional. I've been watching some behind-the-scenes Stranger Things, and in developing their big bad villain, the Duffer Brothers, the creators and often writer-directors, specifically name-checked Voldemort. So I think we can comfortably draw some of these parallels.
Nice.
The third one is that so much of this show has been about these kids growing up, going through middle school into the much more brutal realm of high school.
Absolutely.
And this season is very much about outgrowing that school setting, in the same way Harry Potter in Deathly Hallows outgrows Hogwarts. So all of your characters, who are ostensibly still school-aged, are in hiding. They're in exile, living on the margins of society. And because everything's under lockdown, and there is this authoritarian lockdown that's happening in both of these stories, we end up with some uneasy allies, some strange bedfellows from across the cast in both of these stories. A couple kind of sub-examples there. They do these runs into the Upside Down, where they organize kind of this raiding party to break through into the Upside Down and run through and look for tracks of Vecna. And that really reminded me of, in Deathly Hallows, how the trio have to organize and plan encyclopedically these runs into society, where they're undercover and they can't get found, and they have to know all these tracks of how people move, kind of like a stealth mission in a video game.
Right, they're doing the Ministry of Magic.
Exactly.
I mean, Gringotts is actually part 2, but still, like, yeah,
right.
that makes sense.
And if you look at how the book is divvied up between those two movies, I'm kind of cribbing from Deathly Hallows as a whole.
Sure.
But the first episode of this final season is called The Crawl, and it very much feels like that mission into the Ministry of Magic.
That's cool.
You also have this training montage of 11 in the woods, and she's running and jumping, and she's got kind of an obstacle course that she's training through. And so much of the way it's shot reminded me of the trio camping and then being chased by the trackers.
Right. That, honestly, the scene of them running through the woods being chased by those guys is such a good scene.
It's
like,
incredible.
It's so like cinematically exciting and like feels so much bigger than where we've been able to go in Harry Potter before, because we've been like inside a castle. I mean, occasionally we're not, but this was like, oh, the world is so much bigger and like is going to swallow these very young, like kind of still kids up, right? And I like you talking about the like high school thing, because it sounds like the Stranger Things kids have not graduated high school. They're just not able to be in there currently. And that's what happens in Deathly Hallows. Harry, Ron, and Hermione still have one more year to go at Hogwarts, but they have to leave because they got to do stuff. So it's an interesting comparison.
And even though some of them are still attending school, it is so backburnered as a priority for the show. They're kind of just going through the motions, and the narrative feels barely interested in that part of it. Versus last season was all about, we're coming into high school, some of us are breaking off into different friend groups, and that was where so much of the character work and drama was. Here, it's almost incidental that most of them are in school, and almost all of the runtime on the show is them outside of school planning these runs and fights against Vecna.
And of course, in Harry Potter, like the first 6 books, the structure of the story is built around school and the school year and what you're learning at school and what your teachers are saying. And then even though in Deathly Hallows they're not actually in school, it's like we've broken out of that structure and our story is built around other things outside of school.
This next one, this 6th parallel, I think you can help me with. So in Deathly Hallows, there is this kind of pirate radio resistance broadcast that I think has Fred and George and
Lee Jordan and Lupin. Yep.
What is that called?
It's called like Potter Watch, I think.
That's what I thought. Okay. Because this Stranger Things season does the same thing.
Oh, cool.
So you have Robin, who's played by Maya Hawke, who's fantastic. And she is now a personality at a local radio station. But she's embedding all of these hidden messages and clues. So the rest of them are listening to it, and they're finding all the details about when they're going to meet up to plan the next crawl to run through the Upside Down. I thought that was a beautiful parallel.
Awesome. Yeah. So there's not like a secret password where you tap your wand to access the channel, but it's code. And so only people who are part of this resistance will understand. That's cool.
The next one is how Will Byers is brought so much back to the fore in the narrative here. And I think he's really reintroduced as the Harry Potter sort of figure. Because 11 has always been the magical one, the main character.
The chosen one.
The chosen one, exactly. But Will was the inciting incident. He was the impetus for this whole thing, his disappearance. And since he's come back, he's always had these lingering possessions and connections to the Upside Down and the Demogorgons. And that has been explained and crystallized into this Harry Potter-like special mental connection that he has with Vecna, to the point that they can spy on each other. You know, sometimes Harry can like spelunk into Voldemort's brain and see things from his POV. Will does that throughout these 4 episodes.
Oh, cool.
And we try to weaponize and exploit that connection from our side.
Has he been able to do that before?
So the way the show has breadcrumbed this connection, it's always been this kind of gloopy, uncertain relationship to mystical, fantastical shit. And as we've learned that, oh, this was actually Vecna, and that was actually Vecna, we've explored this hive mind concept. Now we see it as explicitly a connection between Will and Vecna.
Okay.
But that has been a revelation. That wasn't something we knew the whole time.
Well, I mean, I asked because that is kind of similar to Harry Potter. I mean, Harry is aware of this weird connection he has in book 5, right? In Order of the Phoenix. But he's not able to really hone and control it until Deathly Hallows. So that sort of clarity and understanding of it and ability to access it more intentionally is paralleled in both of these stories. That's cool.
It's a lot like how some of the antagonists in Harry Potter books don't feel initially like they're related to Voldemort, but by the end you realize they all are.
Sure.
We've done the Tom Riddle thing, I think, last season really effectively, and we've snowballed all of our antagonists into being Vecna.
Okay, awesome.
The next one to play with, the 8th similarity here, is continuing this kind of Half-Blood Prince style origin story flashback series as we get to know Vecna and who he used to be. It really feels like how we got to know Voldemort in Half-Blood Prince, but we're kind of stretching that out and filling that into some of the final story instead of just the penultimate story in Half-Blood Prince.
Oh, cool.
And we see these different forms. You know, you see Tom Riddle with the floppy hair, and he's this austere scholar, and that's exactly how we're presenting Vecna in his human form. But now, in the freaky monster form, he looks like Voldemort without a cloak on. He looks, every time I see Vecna, I think, oh god, Voldemort's naked. Because they're both these noseless monsters with bad skin.
Does it ring as being derivative?
No.
Okay.
No, and because it's kind of alive, like you see, it's kind of like Davy Jones in Pirates of the Caribbean. You see a lot of kind of tentacles and parts of his body moving and pulsing. It means that they've been able to evolve how he looks. And the way he looked in season 4 kind of just looked like a naked dead body.
Okay.
But the way he looks in season 5 is fucking awesome.
Oh, cool.
They've given him these like antler things on his back.
Ooh.
He looks amazing. And
Cool.
I think he really has his own visual identity in season 5.
Gotcha. But you just recognize it enough to be like, I recognize that as something that is terrifying and the ultimate evil and formidable.
In the same way, when Voldemort pops out at the end of Goblet of Fire, he's just like this snakehead in a V-neck.
Sure.
He just like,
he's got that deep V.
Yeah, exactly. But by the end, he's got more like chunky robes and his own look going.
Right.
We've had the same sort of evolution here for how the villain appears.
Right. And even like once he's got Nagini, you could argue that that's like an extension of his body once he decides to keep her close because he knows Harry's going to try to kill her. And so you could kind of tie that to the tentacle thing. So yeah, this is fun. Okay.
And the last similarity is how the Demogorgons have been reframed. Instead of being their own Lovecraftian monsters, as we've gotten to know them as part of a hive mind, they almost seem like grunts. Because Vecna can send them out to do things and see through their eyes. And that really reminded me of the Death Eaters. Because I'd always thought of the Demogorgons as monsters, or in Harry Potter parlance, fantastic beasts.
Sure.
But now they feel like Death Eaters, because this hive mind connection that Vecna has with them reminds me of the connection Voldemort has to the Death Eaters through the Dark Marks.
Yeah.
So you have the tattoos. And I'd never thought about it, but I guess the Dark Marks sort of do unite the Death Eaters as almost a hive mind.
Yes,
where they can be tracked and traced and operate as one.
That's really interesting.
I love that reframing or kind of weaponization, as instead of just scary boogeymen, they are now lieutenants.
Yeah,
They're
servants.
spies.
Yeah. That's a really cool comparison too. Do the Demogorgons have like a strong consciousness or a sense of like self-control or free will, or are they very much just like controlled by what's his name?
I feel like they can be overridden. They kind of just do their own scary, threatening shit, and you imagine that Vecna is orchestrating it.
Okay.
But then sometimes they can be kind of manually operated.
Okay, interesting. I mean, because the Death Eaters obviously are human beings who have free will and can do what they want, but they are, especially the ones that are really dedicated, like Bellatrix and like Wormtail, they're so brainwashed and enveloped in their dedication that they feel like brain dead sort of puppets that Voldemort can do whatever he wants with.
I mean, the Demogorgons are barely sentient. They are basically animals on this mental leash.
Yeah, interesting. This is a really cool comparison. That's so fun.
The American Harry Potter.
I mean, I'm excited to hear what you think when Volume 2 drops. Yeah. And I listener, if you don't remember, I've only seen season 1 of this show, and I'm interested in watching the whole thing. But I'm like wanting to watch it with that mindset, with that like point of view and sort of lens. Like I think that would be really interesting, and again helps me maybe understand the vast, massive, wide appeal of this show for so many people, and specifically for American audiences.
Sure.
I mean, it is internationally recognized, of course, but so is Harry Potter, right? So that's really interesting. Oh, very cool. I love this comparison.
If you want to support the show, you can check out Patreon, where we have years of bonus episodes piled up just in our Breakfast Buffet Roundup series. It's over 100 works of art discussed in conversation with each other, going through the source material of the House of the Dragon show. We go chapter by chapter through George R. R. Martin's Fire and Blood, as well as a million other movies and fantasy things and horror things. Maggie also mentioned a Stranger Things episode we did last week, I think, at this point.
It dropped right before Thanksgiving.
We've also done a couple Harry Potter episodes, one about being millennials and growing up with Harry Potter, one about Hogwarts Legacy, which Maggie really identified with.
Oh, that was a fun discussion.
Experience.
Yeah.
You can also check out my latest book, Lemon Tarts in Space, which is a light science fiction dark comedy. It is Friday the 13th meets Flubber. It is Monty Python meets Ridley Scott's Alien. It's a hoot and holler and good time.
It really is.
Read the paperback or check out the fully produced audio drama. Thank you very much for listening, and we will see you, I think, tomorrow with another brand new episode.